Welcome to the Calm Mom Podcast, the show for ambitious women ready to get off the hot mess express. I know you've got a lot going on. You work so hard, you're raising an incredible family, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. I'm your host, Michelle Grosser. I'm a certified master life coach, attorney, wife, and mom. And years ago, I was right where you are. I was running a busy law practice while raising a family, and I was on the fast track to burnout. I thought I just needed to be more organized or have better routines, but it was learning how to heal and regulate my nervous system that expanded my capacity to gracefully hold more of this big, beautiful life. You too are worthy of an extraordinary life in and beyond motherhood. Learning to be a calm, anchoring presence in your home and at work is going to be your superpower. If you're here to do the inner work that brings a sense of calm amidst the chaos, I'm here to join you on that journey. Each time you press play, your growth continues. So let's get at it. Hey, you're listening to the Calm Mom Podcast. It's Michelle Grosser here. Today on the show, we're going to dive into something that I just see all the time. I've experienced it myself. I know so many of you guys are navigating through this, and it is high functioning anxiety. And more specifically, what I want to talk about today are maybe some things you're doing. We'll call them mistakes, but they're not really intentional. They're just things that we've been doing for a while, probably patterns we've been running that actually contribute to making our high functioning anxiety worse, right? Even if we're maybe aware that we're feeling a little anxious and we feel like we're doing our best to kind of quote unquote manage it. These are some common mistakes that can actually exacerbate that high functioning anxiety that you're experiencing. So I want to talk about what it is, and then I want to go through these mistakes and how you guys can start to make really practical shifts today that are going to make a difference in how you're feeling. So when it comes to high functioning anxiety, it's not actually a clinical diagnosis, right? But it's very real, right? There's no like doctor that's going to sit down and diagnose you with high functioning anxiety. That doesn't mean you're not experiencing it. If you're like me, someone who can very often look like she's crushing it on the outside, right? People are like, wow, you do so much. I don't know how you do it all. Like you're running a business and you're a mom and maybe you're homeschooling and like all these different things you're doing. And it looks copacetic on the outside, but on the inside, you are spinning and you're tense and you're wired and it's really hard to rest. And if that resonates, this episode is for you. So high functioning anxiety is essentially what happens when your nervous system is stuck in this state of chronic stress activation, right? We call it a sympathetic state. Maybe you've heard of it, fight or flight. You're still doing all the things, right? You're still parenting. You're still working. You're still showing up. You're still hosting the things and replying to the things and planning the things. But on the inside, your body is whispering or calling for help, right? Or maybe it's not even doing that. Maybe it's like screaming, I'm not okay. And how that often shows up, it shows up in a lot of different ways, but these are the ways that I see most commonly with the women that I tend to attract and work with. Overthinking everything, y'all. Even the smallest decisions, you can get stuck in analysis paralysis. Maybe you have troubles with sleep, right? Maybe you have a hard time falling asleep. Maybe you have a hard time staying asleep. So many of my clients wake up at 2, 3 a.m. and have a really hard time falling back to sleep. Their mind is just racing. They're thinking about all the things that need to get done. And that's a really tough spot to be in. I've spent years there too. Maybe it's showing up in chronic muscle tension, right? You have a tight jaw, or tense shoulders, or you're shallow breathing. Maybe it is really struggling to slow down and rest, right? Maybe without you even realizing it, you're subconsciously feeling like rest is unproductive or rest is unsafe, right? Stuff's not going to get done. You're going to get in trouble if you rest. And then we kind of end up in this cycle of being productive. And I say that in air quotes, productive to the point of exhaustion, right? And that's the tricky part, is that it doesn't really look like anxiety. You're high achieving, you're reliable, you're on top of stuff, But on the inside, you guys, your nervous system is just on high alert 24/7. So let's talk about 3 really common mistakes that make this pattern worse, and then what you guys can kind of start doing instead. Mistake number 1 that is making your high functioning anxiety worse is that you are avoiding stillness. I see this all the time. The women I work with are pros at being busy. They're pros at taking in information all the time, right? Just like stimuli overload. Stillness can feel really uncomfortable when you've been living in a chronic state of that sympathetic fight or flight activation for a long time. You're always going, you're always doing, you're always multitasking, you're filling every little quiet moment with noise. Guys, that's not being productive, right? It's about your body feeling in the absence of distraction. And when you slow down, there's not as much to kind of buffer what's actually going on, right? Your unprocessed emotions might rise to the surface. That's uncomfortable. The background kind of hum of like all the stuff that you're trying to avoid, guilt, anger, anxiety, grief, unease, right? Your nervous system finally has a chance to feel it if you slow down for a minute and be still. But we don't want to do that, right? We want to avoid discomfort, so we stay busy. But let's talk about the science of stillness, because your brain, like, make no mistake about it, your brain needs stillness. It needs stillness for proper function, optimal health, for regulation. Your brain is not built to run on constant input, you guys. It's just not. So when you're constantly busy, your prefrontal cortex, that's the part of your brain that's responsible for executive function, decision-making, emotional regulation, all the good things that we want to have access to. When you're constantly busy, that part of your brain gets overloaded, and it stays overloaded, and it doesn't get the downtime that it actually needs to do its work, to consolidate your memories and regulate your emotions and recalibrate your stress response. So when we're still, that actually activates something called the default mode network. Not for your computer, for your brain, right? It's a system in your brain that actually switches on when you're not focused on a task, when you're not doing something, when you're not engaged in work or being productive or hustling or getting stuff done. When you slow down and you can be still for a moment, it activates that default mode network. That DMN, that default mode network, you guys need that for self-reflection, right? We all need that for emotional processing, creativity, problem solving, integrating our experiences into long-term memory. So if you never pause, that DMN never gets activated. And that means that your brain can't properly process emotions. It can't make sense of what you're experiencing. And that leaves you feeling, dysregulated, right? It leaves you feeling kind of foggy and reactive. So your brain, your nervous system, it needs this stillness in order to heal. And biologically, you guys, we're actually wired to kind of like shift between our nervous system states. We need some of that sympathetic activation to get stuff done. And like just in our day to day, right? To be alert enough, focused enough to be able to work and respond to our kids and keep up our home and run a business and what have you. But we also need to be able to oscillate between that and our rest and digest, mode of our nervous system, our parasympathetic regulation. So when we stay in that constant state of doing, we never actually drop. Like we don't shift into a regulated state, that parasympathetic recovery zone. And that's where so many good things happen, right? So your body can't really heal if it's constantly going. And I just want you guys, I want to invite you to shift your mindset around stillness. It's not like a luxury. It's not something that would be nice to be able to do, right? When you are still, and I'm not talking about like a 30-minute meditation practice, talk about that in a second. I'm talking about like slow down. If you can be still, right? If you can lessen the amount of stimulation that, is being inputted, that's like a biological signal to your body that there's no threat, right? It's safe. You can shift out of fight or flight, and then you can finally land in your body. Okay. So here is what I recommend doing instead. First, slow down and start to redefine what stillness means for you. I know you've got a lot going on. So do I, right? Right now I'm in a season where I'm running 3 different businesses. I'm homeschooling my kids, right? I clean my own house. I do the kitchen. I do the cooking. I do the laundry. I have a ton of help from my husband and my kids. And I don't have an hour to just, sit at 10 a.m. and do a meditation. Stillness has to look different for me. And maybe it does for you too, right? So I incorporate it when I can. If I'm driving somewhere, I don't put a podcast on or music on or listen to an audiobook. I allow myself to drive. If I'm going to the grocery store, if I'm going to the post office, if I'm, going to, I don't know, whatever it is, on an errand in the pickup line, right? Find your moments where you can have stillness. Exercise, right? If you're going for a walk or even working out, can you work out in silence for half your workout, maybe for 10 minutes, for 30 minutes, and notice the difference, right? Maybe it's incorporating buffer moments of stillness in between meetings in your day. I did this for a long time. I would just put in like at least a 10-minute buffer in between meetings so I could go refill my water, right? Go to the bathroom if I had to, have a snack, and then just sit for 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and breathe and just reflect and let my mind be still before I jumped into the next thing. These are micro pauses that really matter, you guys. They make a difference because they tell your brain, like, it's okay. We're allowed to exhale, right? We're not under any threat right now. There's no stressor coming at us. And when we get that signal, even for, guys, 30 seconds, it begins to shift the state of our nervous system, okay? So that's the first one. The second mistake that you may be making, that's making your high functioning anxiety worse, is you might be in a pattern of taking on other people's emotions. Okay. Maybe this is you. Like, do you ever walk into a room and you can instantly sense the energy in that room? Like, is there tension here? Are people not getting along here? Is there an awkwardness, right? If you can walk into a room and sense that, like, a lot of us have a gift for this. Or maybe it's like someone in your family, right? Maybe you can sense right away if your partner is just in a mood, right? You just like feel this tightness in your own chest. Or maybe your kid's having a meltdown and it's like making you feel like you're also wanting to just scream and shout and roll on the ground and stomp your feet. Or maybe like a friend of yours is really sad about something, right? Maybe she's going through like, I don't know, an emotionally heavy and emotionally weighty season. And you kind of like just feel that you're thinking about her all day long and it makes you sad and you feel like you're the one that's even carrying that emotional weight. That isn't just empathy, you guys. And this is something I've been really working through in the last, 5-ish years. Because I thought it was compassion. I thought it was empathy. And part of it is maybe, but I think to a more so, it's actually emotional enmeshment. And when that's happening constantly, it's actually really taxing on our nervous system and it wires us for chronic stress because as humans, we are biologically designed for co-regulation, right? That's how our nervous systems kind of talk to one another between different people, right? And we can help each other create a sense of safety. So this is awesome, right? Co-regulation when we're trying to parent or like soothe our child who's crying. Co-regulation is beautiful. If we can be regulated, we can help our child's nervous system feel more safe and thus more regulated, right? It's helpful if we're supporting someone who's going through a really painful or tough season. It's helpful because it can help us really attune to other people's like nonverbal cues or other subtle cues, and we can just be present with them. But here's the problem, you guys. If our own nervous system is dysregulated, instead of actually co-regulating and bringing regulation, what we can do is it can quickly just turn into this like emotional absorption. So instead of actually supporting someone else while we stay grounded ourselves, what happens is that our nervous system starts to mirror the other person's state. And we take on what they're going through as our own, right? And that internalization of their dysregulation can leave us feeling anxious or irritable or tired or even stuck in a trauma response that wasn't ours to begin with. And I think this hits especially hard I think it's like, we don't realize this because we're like, I'm a high capacity woman. I'm a high achieving woman. Like, I'm not actually oversensitive. Be careful if you're going down that line of thinking, because that was me for so long. I don't know why. I just had this like judgment or label around being quote unquote sensitive. But what I've realized is I am a high capacity woman. And I also have a history of people pleasing and caretaking and prioritizing connecting with others over taking care of myself. So this one can be especially tricky. And maybe you guys have grown up in an environment where it actually wasn't safe not to be attuned to others. You had to be aware and paying attention and noticing, right? Your nervous system had to learn, like, I'm most safe when everyone around me feels good. And what happens is that our brain's threat detection system, we call that neuroception. It's like our brain's little radar that we wear on our head all day long, just constantly scanning for emotional shifts in the people around us. And when it picks up any sort of stress, unease, discomfort, distress, we just subconsciously, right? This is just a pattern. We just jump into action to fix, soothe, manage, or just internalize it as our own fault. But we weren't meant to carry that, you guys. We weren't meant to carry what doesn't belong to us. And the research shows that empathic resonance, it's this activation when we are in empathy with someone else, when we're empathizing with them, it activates the same brain regions that light up when we actually experience a negative emotion or an uncomfortable emotion. Isn't that fascinating, right? Those are the areas in our brain that are tied to pain perception and social connection. So this is why you can literally feel someone else's pain in your own body. And when we don't have good boundaries between other people's emotions and our own, it's almost like, passing a cold between people, right? You're like passing a stuffy nose or congestion or a sore throat or what have you. It's like this emotional contagion. And our nervous system can't really tell the difference between someone else's stress and our own stress. So we stay stuck in this kind of sympathetic overdrive where it's not our stuff, but we're still the ones feeling tense or hypervigilant or exhausted and often resentful. So what do we do instead? The good news is that you don't have to stop caring, right? You don't have to kind of be cold or distant or just like shut down your empathy. Absolutely not. Those are beautiful parts of your personality and mine, frankly. And you do have to be accountable to build and set and hold energetic boundaries, right? So that you can be compassionate and gentle and kind and support others, but at the same time, not lose yourself. Okay. So just start to notice like, hey, is that mine or is that not? Right. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like some of this is happening, like just pause and ask yourself like, hey, is this actually mine? Right. Is this actually my pain, my grief, my sadness? Is it mine to carry? Is it mine to heal? Just that moment of awareness can really give your nervous system kind of permission to step back and then ground into your own body, right? Come back to yourself, center into your core, right? Put your hand on your belly or your heart, feel your feet on the ground and breathe and come back, anchor yourself before you go out like absorbing everyone else's storm. And then just practice the difference between like co-regulating and not co-mingling, right? You can stay regulated while being present for someone else. That is powerful. That's like the magic of healthy co-regulation. Co-mingling is so different, right? Taking on someone else's energy. We don't want to do that. We just want to be steady, the steady presence that they can kind of borrow from. So that's mistake number 2. And then the third one I want to talk about today, and this is probably going to hit because I know you guys, because I am you guys. The third mistake is being the strong one all the time, right? If you're anything like me, you hold it down. You hold it down. We're good at that. I hold it down for my kids. I hold it down for my husband. I hold it down for you guys. I hold it down for my clients. I hold it down for my extended family. I hold it down for my people. And I'm the one, right? That everyone comes to when things get hard or it falls apart. I'm the one who keeps going when, others don't. I've worn the strong one badge for so long. And for most of my middle school, probably high school, young adult life, I completely abandoned and forgot that I even had needs of my own. And here's the truth, you guys. If you resonate with that, if you have experienced that, being the strong one all the time is not part of your personality. I had to learn this. It's actually a nervous system survival strategy, and it's costing you more than you realize. And what probably happened is that when you were younger, you might have learned that being soft, asking for help, being vulnerable, that wasn't okay in the moment, right? For whatever reason, there wasn't time for that. There wasn't space for that. It wasn't safe. You had other stuff you had to do. Maybe you were told to be a big girl or stop crying, or you were always told you were so mature for your age, or you actually had to care for your siblings or your own parents, or you were told don't make things harder, don't be so sensitive. And what happens is that your body hears that and it adapts, right? Your nervous system learns over time because it's being reinforced. If I stay strong, if I'm composed, if I'm in control, if I can just do the things, I'm not going to be a burden. And then if I'm not a burden, it's going to be easier for people to love me. And then if people love me, I'm more safe, right? Always comes back to safety. And what happens is that over time, this becomes our default, right? It becomes like our subconscious strategy, and it helps us. It serves us well in a season to avoid, being abandoned or rejected or disappointed or what have you. But fast forward to today, right? Whatever, how many years later, decades later, your survival brain is still running that script, you guys. Even when you're exhausted, even when you need help, even when you're drowning, even when, it's clearly not working anymore, because the pattern is reinforced by chronic sympathetic arousal, i.e. chronic fight or flight. Your nervous system is so stuck in doing mode that it has this equation between slowing down or asking for help and not being safe. So you stay strong. But underneath that underneath that armor, you probably feel quite disconnected from your own needs. I know I certainly did. You might start to feel resentful, like who's taking care of me? Who's checking in on me? Who cares, right? That was me. Maybe you feel really anxious when you're not in control because that's how you've tried to feel safe, by controlling things. Or maybe you're kind of numb to the good things you want to experience, right? Joy, that bubbly laughter. You can't even remember the last time that you did that because you're just stuck in this performative strength. Okay. And when you're in that performative strength, you guys, when you're in a state of high functioning stress, smiling, producing, pushing through, your body starts to pay the price and your cortisol levels elevate, right? You're not sleeping well. You're not digesting well. Your hormones are out of whack. Your energy production is all over the place. Your prefrontal cortex, again, that part of your brain that's responsible for your emotional regulation and making decisions and empathy, that becomes less active under chronic stress. So it's harder to connect with other people and it's harder to feel joy. And you just kind of become emotionally unavailable. And it's not because you don't care, right? You care deeply. It's just because you're tapped out, right? You are maxed out. You're at capacity. So if you have run that pattern of being the strong one, might look admirable from the outside, but on the inside, your nervous system needs support, okay? And the hardest part of this pattern is just that. You're trained and you've trained people around you to just assume that you're fine because that's what you tell them, right? That's what you show. So they don't check in. They don't offer help, right? They assume you don't need it. And meanwhile, you're on the other end of that and you're like, man, I'm just so I just wish someone would come and help me. And that's not strength, you guys. That's nervous system self-abandonment, right? Saying you're fine when everything in your body is actually begging for someone to say hey, you don't have to do this all by yourself. I'm going to help you, right? I've got you. So what do we do instead? Well, you can still be strong and still need support, right? Start to redefine what strong means to you. You can start to rewire that belief from the inside out. So I think a good place to start here is just like before it goes external, let's take it internally. Can you let your body soften first, right? Can you signal safety to your body? Somatic tools, somatic release, right? Breath work, shaking, just telling your body in the way that it understands, like, hey, we don't actually have to do it all and have it all together right now. And then start to ask yourself, like, where am I faking it? Right? This is something I started to ask myself, like, where am I actually lying? That's what it is. Like, where am I pretending not to need anything, but I actually do? Where do I need support and I'm pretending I don't, right? Where do I need rest? When do I need rest? And I'm pretending that I don't. When do I need someone to just like hug me or hold me or reassure me or affirm me? And I'm pretending I don't. Like, start to identify the thing that you're suppressing. I think that's one of the first steps toward giving yourself permission to actually receive it. And then start asking for it, right? Maybe that means like this week you're going to delegate one task, right? Maybe it means this week you're going to let someone else lead. Start with your kids and your husband, lead for once, right? Maybe it's this week you're going to be honest when someone asks you how you're doing, and you're not going to be like, I'm great. Oh, it's just been so busy. Everything's good. But you're going to be like, oh, nope. I'm actually going to stretch this vulnerability muscle, and I'm going to be honest, and I'm not going to lie when someone asks how I'm doing, right? You don't need to collapse. You just need to loosen your grip little by little, and it's going to pay off. Okay. So those are the 3 mistakes I have for you guys. And then some really practical ways that you can start to kind of shift out of that space. And it's going to make a difference for your anxiety. I promise you. High functioning anxiety, you guys, it drives us to disconnection. Disconnected from yourself, disconnected from your body, disconnected from your needs, disconnected from others. But what I want you to hear as we wind this episode down is that you guys can rewire this, right? Regulate your nervous system, avoid these mistakes, do the things we talked about instead, and you'll notice a shift in your high functioning anxiety. And if you guys want a place to start, if you haven't yet downloaded my nervous system reset guide, there's a link for that in the show notes. Check it out. We go through the 3 pillars of regulating your nervous system. I have a couple really awesome somatic practices in there to help you regulate. There's also a link to a short meditation and breath work. So if that's something that would be helpful for you, if you haven't checked it out yet, go ahead and download the Nervous System Reset Guide. There's a link in the show notes for you guys. All right. So good being with you guys today. So grateful for each and every one of you, believing this landed, believing this was eye-opening, believing it was helpful. I love you guys so much, and I'll talk to you soon.